Hey guys, I wanted to make a video that was more centered and focused about the DLC, knowing at the Game Awards we really didn't get any news, and I kind of figured, as a lot of other people figured, that we would get some sort of news, but we didn't get anything, so I figured I would make a video on the things I would like to see and my take on Shadow of the Erdtree itself, and hopefully the quality that we will receive in the DLC, or the expansion. I would really like to talk about the map size and what we might be getting. I would like something along the lines like how in Bloodborne you would go to Canehurst Castle. I would like to see something more along the lines of that, like an area of a map that's big, has a lot of exploration, but maybe this big castle or this big area of a lot of verticality, right? I really like the exploration in Elden Ring, and I think From Software did a very good job with the open world stuff. There's a lot of mystery to things in the game, especially going in some ruins or caves or even abandoned castles or areas of the sorts like that that have some sort of story relevance, whether it be pertaining to the war that happened or a specific boss that you might fight or a character. However, one thing Elden Ring did not have a lot of besides the underground eternal city was a lot of verticality. I feel like there was a lot of it in Stormvale, and I really liked climbing the castle in Stormvale. And I think personally that brings a lot to the scope of the areas that you are in, and the idea that you are actually in this massive sprawling castle city. I felt like that wasn't the case in, the capital itself. It would be nice if we got something along the lines of that. I assume we're going to get a lot more to do with, Miquella and what everybody else seems to hone in on that aspect of what the Shadow of the Erdtree actually is. I'm not going to theory craft too much about that because I'm not as familiar with the lore as I am for the Souls games, but for me personally, I would really like to see more verticality in some more urban-ish environments, if you want to say it that way. Outside the areas though, I would like to see maybe more puzzles put into the dungeons that we might get that aren't the main dungeon or dungeons. For instance, areas that require you to think a little bit about how to get up to areas, and I guess it really comes into the point of more verticality. Maybe more secrets too, which I assume we will probably get. Outside that, I do have a wish list for weapons and spells I would like to see as well. I haven't talked much about the spells at all in any of my videos, but I did really enjoy my first run through when the game first came out as a mage, and playing with spells was really fun, and I've never really done that before in a Souls game. I usually just go big sword, totally a Berserk reference style build, and it wasn't since Dark Souls 3 where I actually tried something different on my first playthrough. Playing around in Elden Ring as a mage made me realize that I would like to see more enchanted weaponry, and what I mean by that is, say, magical weapons like, Sword of Flame, those kind of weapons that have some sort of mystique to them, right? I would like to see some more scythes, as ridiculous as it might be, maybe something to do with Deathblight or even something to do with Dark, whether that be like a death magic scythe, not Deathblight, but like death itself. Or I feel like there's a lot of things you can do with like Saint Trina, and just the really underrepresented things in the game, because we have a lot of dragon stuff, we have a lot of golden order stuff, we don't have a lot of the death and dark magics, and I feel like in Souls games that usually is lackluster, and I wouldn't say not fun, but lackluster as in there's not a lot of it compared to the normal things, right? Or they're just not as cool, or they're not as good. And I know that's like debatable whether or not they're good or not, since you can make a build center around it and still have fun, which that's awesome. And I think that mindset that From Software has with that kind of thing has yet to fail, in my opinion. We could get some more ice lightning stuff too, which would be really cool. I think there's only like one incantation in the game that's like that, so it'd be really neat to get more ice lightning stuff. Of course, memes aside, we can go all Oblivion on this and add some horse armor for our trusty steed there. We could also have more customizations with the armor itself, maybe some dyes, the cloths on the armor, which would be cool. Just to do more with that system that seems to really be in place, but not really much going on there, I would like to see a little bit more of that, and I hope that there is something that you can unlock with more customization of your armor and more personalization of your character and such and stuff like that, because in the end of the day, when you make your builds and you make your characters, you have your own personality, or the personality you want your character to have put into it, and the more customization we have with that kind of stuff to let us express the fantasy of what we're trying to build and play out in the lands between is just, I think, super important. The biggest thing for me in the DLC, it has nothing to really do with PvP, which might surprise any of you who watch my videos, is covenants. What happened, right? There was stuff in the files, apparently, that the covenants were cut, content stuff, right? And it sure seems like a lot of areas were set up in the game to have covenants, like the Volcano Manor. We really didn't get much of that, did we? And I think covenants, or the lack of covenants, really does hurt the multiplayer, period. Whether that be if you're a co-op player or if you're a PvPer, it really just does hurt. It hurts it in general. You don't have any real reason to go out and do co-op other than to get rune arcs or to help your friends or help people for fun, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think the fun aspect is just there all the time anyways. However, I do remember very vividly through Dark Souls 1 and 3, including Bloodborne, is the covenants were my favorite thing to do in the game. I loved making Sunbro builds that were just really good at buffing people, and I loved farming the tokens and helping people to get the spells that I was working towards, the progression of your character, right? And that's something that's sorely lacking in Elden Ring. I don't know why. I don't know if it was like a late design decision to do that or an early design decision. I actually expect covenants to show up, whether it be only 2 or 3. I expect them to show up. Hopefully they're not locked specifically to the expansion zone itself, but if it is, I wouldn't be too upset about it. I think having that there would still be a net plus for all the players, despite what content you like to play. I think Covenant shops should have rune arcs, like rune arc merchants, just to give us a reason to collect them, because right now, honestly, unless you are a host, correct me if I'm wrong, unless you're a host, you can't really use them. And I went through the game, personally speaking, and I forgot about them. I had them on early on in game with Godric's rune just because it gave me like extra health and stats, which was really useful early game. But late game, I was so overpowered that I really totally forgot about the rune arcs in general and the great runes in general. You know, Covenant specific spells and armors, you know, that would also add up into the, you can add that into the shop depending on your rank, or you can do the whole ranking system like they did in the previous games, which seemed to work. And I think what would be really cool too is phantom tints. What I mean by that is, say for a co-opper, the more you do, maybe like the brighter your glow is or the richer your glow. So you can start off as maybe this like faded gold color, but after you've helped kill like 10 or 12 bosses and you get to the final rank of the Covenant, you'll have like this glowing incandescence, as Solaire would say, right? You have this very strong visual cue that you are very helpful in that situation. And the same with phantoms, like, you know, the more red kills, the more bloodier they get, and oh wow, that person's killed a lot of people. You know, same with blues, you know, you can do the same thing. And I think that kind of gives a little bit of a status symbol to players, you know, who don't do the arena, doesn't have a rank. You know, it's kind of like Covenant ranks for more player progression, right? The same thing with, like I said before, with covenants in general. To be more on the multiplayer aspect of things, I think more player limit is definitely, no, I know more player limit is sorely needed. Whether that means for co-op, for PvP, the fact that Elden Ring has the lowest player limit out of all the Souls games that has come out is honestly quite depressing, considering this is an open world game and there's a lot to explore with your friends and there's a lot to do in the game. And only having like 4 player limit just feels weird. You know, you're not giving a lot of other people a chance to help multiplayer wise, whether that be against or with you. You have 4 slots, so you can have your friends and then 1 invader. Okay, well, why can't I have like more of my friends? You know, before you used to use the dry finger and you can summon 1 more phantom. The payoff was that you would get invaded faster. Well, I had a lot of fun playing with a group of my friends through Dark Souls like that, and that was a really fun experience. You know, I know a lot of people out there want to adventure with their friends, and I feel like that would really help a lot with the increased multiplayer limit. You know, if you want to make it limited to certain areas, that I think that could work too, to kind of keep the balance of the game. I think that that would really just enrich the multiplayer experience, which again, this game can be played single player, and I still do stand by the opinion that it is a single player game because there's not a lot of multiplayer features, but we can't ignore the fact that there is a lot of multiplayer aspects of the game. While there isn't any incentives to really play, say for rune arcs and to have fun, you know, you have invasions, you have the blue ring, you have rune arcs that you collect from bosses to help with your single player experience, you have these areas that are obviously meant to have either the ashes, spirit ashes summons, or co-op. So I think increasing the player would just make everybody a lot more happier with things, a lot more fun to play with their friends. And so it would be nice to have like an area that had objectives. Maybe it could be a small PvP area like the forest, but maybe an objective that helped in PvE as well. Like say maybe a shrine you can take control of, you know, as long as you're in that area. You have the control of the shrine and you're empowered, or you get upgrade materials or something from killing enemies or doing certain things, right? Or killing invaders there or something, right? Incentivizes people to do more. And I feel like it could be fun to have more world dynamic things, since right now multiplayer in the open world is just basically mostly about the exploration, I feel like, and the world bosses, which are really cool. I'm not going to talk too much about nerfing damage and numbers and stuff like that. You know, the balancing between weapons I'm sure will keep changing depending on how many expansions we get for the game, how many updates we get for the game. The game has plenty of updates in its life expectancy, I'm sure. But you know, the underrated weapons I think could use a little bit more love. I want to finish this up by saying I hope that the cut dialogue and cut content just gets added back to the game. I know they already did that at the beginning of Elden Ring's life cycle with the Jarbird quests and some NPC dialogue that was missing. I hope they just go ham and just add all that stuff back in that did not make it to launch for whatever reason. And lastly, a PC only thing, I really hope we get regional matchmaking for co-op and invasions for PC, just how Armored Core has regional matchmaking, and just better connection overall for PC. You know, it's not even really a PvP issue. A lot of people still struggle to stay connected to their friends, and sometimes it's not a very good experience a lot of the times on PC. And I just hope we get better connection. I mean, it is 2023, we're going into 2024. A lot of games nowadays have pretty good multiplayer connectivity. I don't see why From Software can't also be held to that standard. But either way, guys, this was just my quick thoughts about Shadow of the Erdtree. What do you guys think below? I mean, you seem to really like these conversational videos that I do, despite agreeing or disagreeing. So let me know what you guys think. And like always, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Tarnished.